All right, welcome to Convention Gems 2025, where the admins listen to convention so that you wouldn't have to.
We didn't have to either, but we did it.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
We didn't really do it for you. Sorry.
Every time I skipped convention, I felt a little searing in my heart.
Yeah, my conscience is completely seared now.
So we can first start out with just the fact that we had the ability to listen to convention. I mean,
Yeah,
limited to the West Coast only, and not even the entire West Coast, right?
Right.
Interestingly, like the areas where we're from is where we were able to pretty much listen.
Well, people around there know us and shuttle us phone numbers and stuff too.
Yeah, but they're also more publicly available in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
those are really some of the only ones that are just like posted like on the lists. The number might be on the same list. Like here, everybody can listen in, and they're getting several hundred people listening into those conventions.
Yeah, I think at the peak one, I can't remember which one it was. One of the Washington ones I called into said there were like 450 people.
Yeah, I think that they were over 500 at one point.
Yeah.
It might have been when, I think it was after Wayne's stuff came out, and
Yeah.
yeah, it might have been Saturday. I don't know.
It was definitely a weekend. It was
definitely that upped it.
But I mean, to their credit, it is a good thing that they're allowing it to be public, as opposed to some of the like the East Coast ministry
Everywhere
is like
east of Idaho.
not even letting actual members of the church call in some cases.
Yeah, there's like a whole section of crazy stories about that.
If you don't have a good enough excuse to not be physically at convention, they won't give you the call-in information because you got to register your phone number and stuff.
Like if you're not sick enough, you can be sick, but they can still decide that you're not sick enough.
Right.
Or like
Yeah.
your family member's sick, but you don't have to be there with them, so
That's crazy.
you could be at convention.
Yeah, that's interesting. And on the West Coast, I know at least one worker mentioned that he was going to say something, and he referenced like, "Oh, and some people calling in might hear this too. You never know who's listening," or something like that.
Yeah, that was
Yeah, I
funny.
think that was Fred, I think, said that. Wasn't that Fred Skalitsky
I
this
think it
year?
was
That
Fred
was like,
Skalitsky,
yeah, and for the, as if all the people on the phone were just like there for the gems, when really I am super curious. I wish that I could have a way to know how many of the people on the phone are calling in for like worship purposes, and how many are calling in for curiosity and just kind of like keeping an eye on things.
Yeah, like us.
Yeah.
There's 4 right here, so.
Yeah, I mean the number of call-ins were close to the number of people actually in attendance. I think in some cases.
How many
Yeah,
conventions
oh,
did you listen to? I didn't.
So many.
Keep
So
track
I
of
can have
that.
notes from.
There's that Walla Walla, Post Falls. I just scrolled past one note that was like so much innuendo. Parma,
That was the theme this year. That's for sure.
Wasilla, Milltown, Saginaw, and part of Olympia.
Yeah.
I was kind of burned out by the time Olympia came
Yeah,
out.
boring
Yeah.
1 and
Oh,
2.
boring.
I don't know what you guys said, but boring 1 and 2, Didsbury,
You have this
I didn't
here.
listen to Didsbury.
Wasilla, Milltown, Olympia, Parma, Saginaw, Wasilla.
If we weren't the heathens that we are, this would sound like we're trying to flex.
Yeah.
Like, I was listening to so many conventions this year, you guys. I'm like
And to be
super
clear, like
godliest person.
we didn't sit there. Well, some days we sat there most of the day,
It's the most professing.
But
but we
Catholic
were like
ever.
in and out, and kind of like one of us would be calling in and be like, "You guys, this person is talking some crazy stuff. Everybody needs to get on."
Yeah.
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 I would say most times there was like 1 to 2 people listening, but then sometimes our chat would like, OMG, and then it'd be like, called in. Just called in. What's going on?
I wonder, it'd be so cool if you could see number of calls like over time and see if there are any other spikes because other people were doing that, you know?
Yeah.
Totally.
It would be like in like the YouTube videos where it shows like what most people like click to hear in the video, and like it's the most watched part of the entire video.
Right.
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
the
we need
workers
like
could-
the behind the scenes data from the workers on.
Yeah, maybe the workers could use that data to decide who to bring back next year.
Who they're gonna trade away and who they're gonna trade in.
We're
Yeah.
not sure why, but Gary Paul was a big hit. Let's put him on a lot.
Maybe that's why they keep letting him talk.
It's a lot of flat lines around sowing the seed. We got to get something new.
So general takeaway, I'm just going to throw out there, was like, there was a big difference, I thought, between this year and last year vibes, where last year they were still kind of like in a really roundabout way acknowledging that there was a crisis going on. And this year it was completely back to normal, other than every single convention at least once from the platform and in testimonies mentioned like all the people who aren't here, or all, you know, my friends and family who used to come and now they don't, and it's
Or
so
the
much more
empty
than
benches.
yeah, empty benches, yeah. That was kind of, but
Yeah.
everything else was
People-
honestly kind of boring overall.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
people who have turned away from God, who have turned their backs and who have walked away from this and who have
Yeah.
been caught up by all of the ideas that you can find Jesus elsewhere, essentially. Like that's all of that language.
All the same stories about why people left, which is such a funny thing to do when it's pretty obvious why people are leaving, and it's none of
Yeah.
those things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's so weird. It's so weird to even say that stuff when everyone knows better. Everyone knows why people are leaving, including the people you're talking to, and yet it's still filtered through all these little narratives about like, well, they're just going their own way, or they think they can find Jesus elsewhere, or whatever.
There was literally a sermon about that. Who there was somebody this year who did that that sermon. It was like people are saying you can find Jesus elsewhere and they're wrong. Like just straight up said that.
Oh, there was so much exclusivity.
A lot, like more than usual. I feel like I don't know.
Oh yeah, I feel like there was more than at least.
Well, they have to harp on it because at this point, if the exclusivity starts to break a tiny bit for somebody, then like that there's no reason for them to stay, and they're hemorrhaging members. So why wouldn't they harp on exclusivity? That's what the only thing fear at this point. Fear is the only thing that's going to get people to stay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is like exclusivity is kind of the last like rope that people are kind of dangling on, I think, for the most part.
Yeah.
Because why else would you stay in this church that's being investigated by the FBI?
Right.
Yeah, if you don't have answers for the only question everyone's asking, then you just make up a different story. So they just kept doing that. And it's like, it's funny because it's like, that's what they do. That's what they've always done. And yet sometimes it's like, man, what are we all doing here if we're not talking about the only thing anyone's talking about? I don't know. It's still kind of weird to me, even though I know that's what they have to do. It's just weird to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's weird to hear them doubling down on so many things that made people leave in the first place. You know, exclusivity being one of them. And yeah,
it's really interesting because a lot of the people who were more kind of on the fringe as far as like more open-minded ideas have all left. So it's whoever is left is just a more extreme group, really more exclusivist, more extreme.
Or the people who still feel like the problems but won't say anything about it. Like they've still got enough of that fear that despite having issues, there's enough fear that they will just like they don't know what to do. They'll just stay there and they won't speak up because that might cause problems. The fear is everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. Despite everybody knowing somebody who has left, and like based on that, like you would think that they would be really supported if they did want to make that choice. It's still not the case. Like there's still a lot of those like friend and family ties that keep people in no matter what.
Yeah, especially because there was a lot in the last couple of years, there were a lot of families or entire meetings leaving together. So there are a lot of families where nobody has left, and then it would be really hard to be the first one to leave, you know?
Right.
Yeah, it would. And also after all this time, I think it's kind of hard to like, it's getting to a point where you didn't leave when everything was super obvious and a lot of your like friends and family were seeing it, and like you got through that. And so now it's like the longer it goes, I think the more humility it takes.
Maybe, yeah, that's true.
You know?
We
And
still are
genuinely hard. Like I'm not
yeah.
discounting how difficult that is to find that like, oh, I actually am in a high control religion. They were right. I perpetuated things. And it's like, I have to actually be able to say that.
It is surprising to me still though, like how many people were joining our group who are like just now leaving, or like someone in our group the other day posted a full-on exit letter, and I'm like, oh wow, people are still like, it's still hitting everybody kind of in waves, which is interesting.
Yeah, people have had a lot of patience with the workers on this. Like I noticed that exit letter, at least the one I saw most recently, had a lot of references to the SA scandal and Brewergate, and it's like that was a long time ago now. There's people who've had a lot of patience, and I have some notes about one of my takeaways. Maybe I'll get to it a little bit later, but it seems funny to me that the lack of encouragement for people who stayed in any sort of way. So there was testimonies and prayers and stuff about from the audience about how, you know, their family and their friends had all left and they were sad and they didn't know what to do. The only answer I heard coming from the platform was, yeah, those people that leave are evil, aren't they? Kind of. And it's like, that's not that's not what they're feeling though. When people's families fall apart, or are not the family itself, but the ideology around the family and the system that they're in, when that proves that it doesn't support everybody in the family, the sadness is typically, it seems like, about the family, about we there's a disconnect in my family and I feel bad about it. And the response from the platform is like, yeah, there should be, because they left.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm it's coming back to me now as I'm flipping through my phone and looking at these notes. There was some pretty overt anti-X things said from the platform, and never painted in like, we need to talk to them and help them understand how this is the right way, and we'll try to do better next time. Not even that, not even a hand wave. It's just straight up, the people who leave are the devil.
It shows you how detached the workers are, because this is how
Crazy
they used
detached.
to talk about
Yeah.
exes. And now, like you said, everyone has a family member or a close friend who's left, and they are not necessarily seeing those people as evil, like maybe when it was less rare for people to leave.
So it's easy for the workers too.
Yeah, the workers are not relating to the kind of general congregation.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to relate
Right.
how they used to relate historically, and that's not necessarily the case anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So a question we get a lot is how, like, I feel like with every single convention this year, somebody wanted to know how many people were there, which is a good question because so many people have left over the last few years. And
It was a lot harder.
It was
to
harder
find
to
out
get
this year.
a number because the moles that I was getting numbers from over the past 2 years have left now. Like I had, we were talking to a couple of workers and stuff before they left who were passing us numbers, and yeah. Anyway, I did hear Milltown had, I think it was like peak number was 450 on Sunday that they served lunch or dinner to, which is a pretty significant drop, because when we were growing up, Milltown had 2 weeks, and now it only has 1 week. And each week had around 1,000 people at its peak. And those were usually different groups of people. Like,
well, Olympia was going on at the same time.
And Olympia was going on at the same time.
Right.
So if you say, when we were growing up, Milltown used to have 2,000 people attend all together. And now it's 450 because there's 1 week, and Olympia's a different week. And everybody seemed to, most people went to both, I would imagine.
Probably, yeah. A lot of people in testimonies mentioned that they've gone to several conventions.
Yeah.
And we used to not go to both.
Right.
Most of us
Yeah.
was discouraged because there were so many people.
Yeah, we would usually just go to Sunday of the other one, not the
Right.
entire thing. What?
So that's a significant drop, like 75, 80% drop in numbers.
Yeah, something
from
possibly.
not in the last years, but from the 80s and 90s until now.
Yeah.
And they also have call-in numbers now, so like that did change the numbers a bit.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't remember what last year's numbers were for Milltown. I feel like it was pretty similar.
Yeah, I feel like it was pretty much probably the same, maybe even a little bit less potentially.
Yeah.
There was a lot of mention of people traveling this year. Like they're just essentially doing convention tours.
And then Boring also used to have 2 weeks, and starting this year they cut it down to 1 week. And they last year I heard had 1,000 people. This year they had 700 people, is what I heard. So that dropped quite a bit, 30%.
Boring peaked a lot higher than that too.
Boring it still is, but it used to be one of the biggest conventions.
Boring had 2 this year.
I thought Saginaw had 2 and Boring had 1.
Saginaw, I think, had 1. Boring definitely had 2. I have recordings from both.
Yeah.
You're right. I think I got them mixed up. Either way, it's a lot smaller.
Yeah, because the Saginaw list doesn't say 1 or 2; it just says Saginaw.
Okay.
It's really. I mean, it's always been difficult to get numbers on anything in the church, but like right now, it's really hard to determine like actual, numbers of membership based on convention attendance, because they're roaming all over the place, and
they're
coming down from Canada and all that.
But yeah, I do know, like someone said last year, Boring had around 1,000, and this year it was 700. So that's a 30% drop in 1 year. And I'm pretty sure last year they had a call-in number too. So from 1 year where everything was the same, they had 2 weeks, they had a call-in number, 30% drop. That's pretty substantial, I feel like.
That is, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really curious what's happening in other regions, because like you said, we only have real good eyes on the Pacific Northwest. Mm-hmm. And I know that like the East Coast and the South, like those regions are still really tightly controlled. Like stuff is not getting out of there like it is here. Like,
No.
they're having the overseer meetings, but nobody's getting into them. They're having, like, they probably have some call-in numbers here and there, but nobody's getting a hold of them. And even the, like, allegations and stuff are not coming out anywhere around there. They don't have the safety teams that are doing nothing like ours is. But they don't even have safety teams that are pretending to do safety team stuff.
Again, like, the four of us are connected to the Pacific Northwest too, so it's like it's hard to tell, is it chicken or egg, because people know that people know us from that area, and then they send us stuff, and then it gets out because it's us, and we make sure it gets out. But
I can't tell you how many times this year I've already said, like, well, I didn't have this on my bingo card, and it was often like somebody that I knew that, like, I never ever would have guessed would be using, like, coming to me and being like, ugh, getting out of this cult is hard. Like, or like somebody that I was like somebody that's, like, very prominent that's now just, like, offering me phone numbers for call-ins. I mean, like, these are weird. It's weird reality that we're in.
It is weird. My hero of the year is still John.
That was 2024 though. That was
was it?
Yeah, time
it hasn't been a whole year. A hero of the like 2x2
of the
year.
2x2 year, which
My
goes
year
from
starts at convention.
August.
summer to summer.
That is something that I actually wrote down in my notes that is so funny, because Pacific Northwest conventions are the second half of the year, and everyone in their testimonies is all like, and with this coming year, I would like to do this, or like, I'm so thankful for the start of a new year, or like, it's like they really should just make their own calendar at this point.
June through August, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if we might have something in September in the general region, but generally June through August, and it's like they have a different calendar.
Yeah, imagine what a 2x2 calendar would look like. It would have no holidays. It would have, like, some prominent worker birthdays on it.
And everything would be a worker convention photo.
All the convention
and
days.
The seasons are preps, gospel meeting,
special meetings,
and convention, and then the year would start. The year would start like when convention season starts. It would be the new year.
And the months are like Union Meeting 1, Union Meeting 2.
Oh, they just have a Bible study right on it too. You can just like
perfect, super convenient.
We don't need the Jewish holidays on there. We'll just put the Bible studies on there instead.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
We don't need any of the holidays on there. Actually, let's not pretend they recognize it.
Yeah, they don't have all the regular holidays. They don't like have Flag Day, but do they have Red Flag Day?
They would have Red Flag Day. They would have Patriot Day.
At this point, they would.
And like, President's Day, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, like 4th of July, all the patriotic holidays would be on there for sure.
They don't need a Founder's Day.
They probably wouldn't have been like 30 years ago, but they are now.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, 4th of July was like a pretty big deal.
Yeah, we did it too.
Yeah, we had big days.
Yeah,
4th of July was big, I guess.
That's because we're Americans. Oh, sorry to all the non-Americans that are watching this.
It's hard to everybody who doesn't have a 4th of July.
Sorry to everybody who isn't an American. I don't know.
How did you even survive?
Did we already pass the time where I can talk about the themes that I noticed?
Oh no, go for it. What are the themes?
Okay,
Let's
so
just go around
one of the biggest themes that I noticed was don't do anything.
Yes.
It was a pretty big theme last year, but oh my gosh, it was heavy this year. It was like just everywhere, and I just learned, and the ways that they would say it were like, I just learned I just need to pray more, and I just need to wait and listen, or like when I don't have peace, I just need to stop, or like it was wait, don't, stop, do nothing, pull back. It was literally like they found peace in like, oh, but have you thought about the fact that if it makes you feel icky, you should just pretend it doesn't exist and that will fix it? Have you thought about that? And they thought about it this year. They sure did. And
That's pretty much like how we were raised, though. Like you don't take any actions or make any decisions before you pray. And then when you do go pray, if you don't get a clear answer, you just like kind of wait for something to happen to you. And then that's your answer. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. But I think that they used it in reference, like with this last, everybody talks about the last few years. Like that phrase has come up so often in worker
really
sermons
did.
and in testimonies the last few years, as if it's this like this storm that they went through, this war or whatever, this battle. And in reference to that is like their justification of still staying is it makes them feel better to just, oh, but maybe I shouldn't. We'll do something. Well, maybe, but I shouldn't. Like it feels better if I don't.
That's how you get through storms, right? Is just like planting yourself in one spot and hunkering down and waiting for it to go over.
Yeah, I heard multiple times they used the part where Jesus was sleeping in the boat, and his disciples were all like upset because there was a storm and they were gonna get sunk, and they went to him and he was like, "Where's your faith, dude? Just take a nap." And like they used that so many times this year. I heard it several times used to just like, why are we so worried? Just have faith and settle down and just pray and just stay where we are and don't do anything.
Yeah,
Just where's your faith, dude? Take a nap.
The word "just" is like featured heavily. Like this isn't a theme that I thought of, but like everything is like I just feel, I
just love my little meeting.
I don't know where that word is like. I don't know why
it's like, a minimizer.
Yeah, you're right. It makes things a little bit smaller.
All of your emotions, like if you say
red flag
I'm
is
angry
out of Abby's ear.
What?
The red flag looks like it's like coming out of your ear or something.
It's like
Abby's full of red flags.
Instead of like steam coming out my ears.
So what about you guys? What are some themes that you?
Well, I had a tag onto that one. I actually wrote down, somebody had a whole thing about, actually I have a lot of notes from this one person, so people might know who I'm talking about, but he said the phrase was actually freedom of choice is freedom from choice.
Oh yeah.
So we actually, not only shouldn't we do anything, we don't have to. It's great. This is a freedom. This is good for us to not do anything. I like that little gem.
Yeah, it's kind of along the lines
I like anything
of
that tells me I don't have to do anything and everything's fine.
It's kind of along the lines of, which was another theme this year, of like the whole man's wisdom leads into a maze thing. Like you should not be curious. You should not be questioning. You should just trust God. Same kind of vibe.
Yeah, and all these people out here who think they have it figured out, they're so silly. They're so misled. All these people who think, oh, well, there's problems here. Like I can see the problems and this is what we should do, or this is not right or whatever. And they're just so silly. They've used man's wisdom.
Yeah, the lack of curiosity around, like we've already been talking about it quite a bit, but the lack of curiosity around why people are leaving or why there's a storm at all, why any of that stuff is happening was really interesting, because they could talk right up to a certain point, and they did, and then they stopped every time. They could never say the elephant in the room could not be discussed.
Yeah.
And so so you would get there all kinds of different ways, like, oh, my family told me I shouldn't come this year, but I'm here anyway. And I'm sad that my meeting's leaving. And the workers are saying, hey, everyone that leaves are the devil. And by the way, that's not an exaggeration. One worker I have in my notes said, the people who are leaving are of the devil, period.
Yeah, it's pretty explicit.
And so you can say that as long as you avoid any sort of curiosity about what's actually happening, because if you actually address why they're leaving, then you can't just call them the devil anymore. That's inconvenient. The convenient thing to do, the laziest possible way to talk about the whole thing, is just call everybody evil. And they actually did that several times. There
was even a worker who was crying. Was that Gary Paul? He was like breaking down, crying, talking about the empty benches, and we're like, where is this going to go? But then it was basically like all these people just weren't willing and they lost their faith. And
they hate truth is one of the things I have written down. They're against God. They don't like truth, all this stuff. It's like, because
I remember in the chat, I could probably find it, because I remember being like, whoa, this is weird. He's not a David Jury. Like David Jury is the one who cries all the time, but this wasn't David. It was somebody else. I thought it was Gary. You might be right. It might have been Gary.
It was, somebody who we typically don't hear break down like that. I thought that was interesting. There are so many workers who tell stories about interacting with little kids, and it's like, you guys, read the room. It is not appropriate anymore. But like, I was in my room packing my clothes into my suitcase, and the child of the home came in and we were talking about blah 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 blah, and it's just like this is not okay.
Yeah,
like, they
not only talk. Go ahead.
Well, they've always spiritually fetishized like children.
Yeah,
and it's not really a surprise that when you, like, in one way you fetishize this the whole being of the, like, it's not a surprise that it bleeds, honestly.
Yeah.
Like it's weird. Hold on, I gotta get
That and all of the animal harm. Like there are so many stories of
So many.
the slaughtering of sheep and the like donkeys falling off a cliff and like
it's not new though. That's one thing, is that's not new. That's not just this year for sure.
no,
No,
it's
it's
not
not.
new.
But it's funny to just put those together as themes. It's like there's so many things you could talk about that'd be really poignant, but instead they're going to keep talking about kids in the weirdest scenarios that are really uncomfortable for everybody who knows what you're talking about listening.
Yeah.
And also, some donkeys fell down a hill, and the sheep broke its leg.
And there
and
are
all
little
this-
kids listening
It's like, what?
to these stories,
What are we
and they go
doing?
into great detail about exactly how
Yeah.
sheep are slaughtered.
It's a great
and,
time
like,
filler.
Yeah.
Even on the platform, like it seems like it gives them some sort of weird like separation. If they were to talk to a child individually, they would never tell those stories with those details.
No,
That's interesting. Yeah.
they wouldn't. And little
Like,
kids
it
are in the
gives
audience
them-
listening to that.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Wouldn't they though? I mean, I don't. We're talking about people who don't have kids and aren't really around them in the sense of like having to raise them, so they don't.
I don't think that they would.
Yeah, maybe
I
not.
don't know.
It is weird, but I think that also, I mean, I've talked to ex-workers who've said that an ex-worker once told me that there's audience capture is definitely a thing. Like when you see what gets a response, you're going to keep speaking into that on some level,
Mhm.
whether it's even in the room, like while you're telling a story, you'll tell it a certain way because people are listening, or over time, you'll tell types of stories that get reactions from people.
Like bun
Because you-
dropping.
Yeah, a lot of bun droppers. So like if you get people that are really interested in your story about a lamb bleeding out, then you'll probably just keep telling stories like that.
Yeah.
The
It's
other-
interesting. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say really quick, the other thing that we heard that came up again and again from workers on the platform preaching was worker worship. And it was coming from the workers. Like, oh, we're just like, one of them said something like, we are the most humble of people in the whole world. We, the ministry. I'm like, you yourself, you're the most humble. That's the whole story, bro.
It's
yeah.
like,
Except
it's
they
like
say
they pulled
they.
it directly
They always-
from Amish Paradise.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
They actually, so but well, for one, they always talk about the ministry, but they don't like say we, they say they, or like they always talk about the ministry as if they're not
God's ministry.
the
Yeah.
part of it. But our kids, when they happen to hear something like this, they always quote, "I'm so humble" from
Pop star, right?
no, it's the Lonely Island Boys.
Right, but it's from the Pop Star movie.
What? I have no idea.
Sorry.
I don't
And
like it.
Lonely Island, that SNL band.
But Mike, you were going to say something before I.
Oh, well, let's see. Oh, well, going back to, like the workers reading the audience a little bit and like figuring out what is getting a reaction, what doesn't. It's really interesting in this church because this is not a vocal, like the audience does not participate vocally,
Right.
So they have to be really kind of reading the cues. Like you said, the bun dropping, perhaps, like seeing the heads go down, but you're not getting like the hallelujahs and the amens coming out of your congregation. So they have to really, maybe they don't necessarily read it all the time at the time that's happening. Maybe they form their basis of whether a sermon was successful based on the reactions it gets in the handshake line at the end of meeting or
Or
something.
testimonies referencing it. Like
Yeah.
you
In
never-
convention. Yeah, that's a good point.
But
But
so
I've
the
heard
person that
workers-
cried. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I've heard workers preaching about like we can see you when you fall asleep in meeting and stuff like that. So some are watching.
The one who cried was Ed Alexander, and he had some really horrific stuff to say. Like,
Yeah, that was a weird. That was
he
a
was
weird.
he was saying like every family has an Abraham. He's I don't know, he was talking about like how basically everybody has a oh no, that was like your legacy.
Hang on.
Okay, well that's gonna be a thing. But he was talking about people leaving, and he was crying. Many have left our group. Many have left our group. Almost the vast majority of those that have left have been third or fifth generation. So we're gonna get to that. But one more thing is they won't freaking stop talking about Abigail.
Yeah, Abby was not happy
Sorry,
about
Abigail.
how often her name came up.
It is so often. It's not, and they will always say like she took the blame for something her husband did, and like how wonderful it was, and it pisses me
She
off.
stayed with her husband even though he was horribly abusive.
Yeah.
To be fair, there's not many women in the Bible to choose from, so
Yeah,
Pick another one, literally any other one. That'd be great.
This one actually has a name, not just so-and-so's wife.
Right.
Right.
Mother of somebody.
Yeah.
Mother of several workers.
Yeah.
Well, I remember one worker just passively was talking about the situation and offenses. They did talk about offenses a lot. And one special worker gave a really long, detailed sermon about forgiveness. And if somebody asks forgiveness, you have to give it. They're done at that point. If somebody asks forgiveness, that's all they have to do. Their only responsibility is that, and your only responsibility is to give it. So they can move on. Once somebody has asked forgiveness, it doesn't matter what the sin is. This worker also was very clear about that. Whatever the sin was, if they ask forgiveness, they're done. Their conscience is clear before God and they can move on. Mm-hmm. What could he possibly be talking about?
Yeah, and I remember him saying something about, like, in the Bible, the emphasis is not on that the forgiveness is given. It is on the asking of forgiveness.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter
again,
if you accept it.
Implying that survivors don't even have to forgive.
Yeah,
that part doesn't matter. They ask for it, they're fine. They're good to go. Abby, do you remember when you mentioned earlier that Fred was talking about, like, there might be people listening over the phone? Or I just saw this in my notes. He said this might even be being recorded.
Oh yeah, he did.
That's funny.
Hi, Fred.
Hi, Fred.
Freddie boy. Right where I had this up about Ed crying, he also quote, he also tried to say that. Well, I guess that can be part of that. But
I think we're into specific sermons at this point. So
if our flesh becomes offended with what another person does, the lamb within us will never get offended by what another does. Like, our flesh can get offended, but the lamb inside us could never.
Yeah. Even
do we care enough about our brother's future? It's
to the point that even being offended or being hurt by something is the sin now. Like,
yeah. Well, he was talking about Abigail. He said she took the blame for her husband's actions. And then, do we care enough about our brother's future? Like, it's the survivor's responsibility to care enough about their abuser's eternal salvation that they would forgive them.
Yeah, and you'd think that at this point, like, they would have learned their lesson with this.
Yeah.
But there's zero introspection happening in the wake of the abuse crisis.
Well, and they're not controlling people with that statement enough anymore. So now they're having to revert to the statement about, well, it actually doesn't matter if they forgive you. It just matters that you wanted them to forgive you. Or that you just said it out loud anyway. Because the other method isn't working. People are like, no, that's not how it works anymore. I don't need to forgive this person, and their salvation is their own responsibility. And so they're like, okay, let's figure out how we can still comfort the perpetrators in our midst.
Right. Yeah, I mean, along the lines of just completely ignoring harm being done. Like, I wrote down this quote from Post Falls. A worker said, "Feelings are the enemy. Don't share them. Dig past them." Like,
can you hear yourself?
Incredible.
That might have been Fred. It was, or right before Fred. Fred also said, "You follow this ministry. It's the only way in." So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that was a really good one this year.
Yeah.
On my list.
I think that the most comprehensive talk around the topic, but not talking about the topic, was it boring when the worker, I wrote down several phrases he used for people who'd left, like making wrong choices, turning away from God, refusing truth, stuff like that. A whole bunch of straw men transitioned immediately into talking about Judas, and talked about Judas for most of the rest of the time. Quite in a very direct way, not a passive, like, we'll talk about this, then talk about this. It was very direct. There are people that are saying bad things about us. There are people who are leaving. Okay, let's talk about Judas, who betrayed Jesus. And they went right into talking about that. And then, just to make sure everybody understood, would circle back every now and then and talk about people who were filling their place or doing what they can, carrying their responsibility. A lot of talk about the people who are in were carrying responsibility. Like, it's virtuous to be carrying this heavy load that we have to carry now because all these people don't like us and stuff. And then toward the end, the last note I have from that sermon says, "A few people leave, but we don't need to follow." It doesn't get any clearer than that. Like, we've moved on. Some bad people have left. They are the devil. Like we heard it, I don't know, Post Falls, I think. We need to keep filling our place. We don't need to follow those people. And then the best of all came before that, a few weeks before that, when a worker was talking about how he's feeling pretty good about everything, actually. In fact, this is great. In fact, I think there's a reawakening coming. I
He
was
just
like,
pulled that out of us, like,
just out of nowhere. I was
nowhere.
like, what are you looking
That
at?
was so funny. He's like, no, but it was even more specific than that. It was like, we workers are expecting a great awakening or something. It was like, it was
I'm
as if
gonna
it
find the quote because I know that we put it in the chat.
Yeah.
So while you're looking
It
that
was
up,
wrong.
another really, really funny thing we heard at least 2 different conventions was I started keeping a list of activities that were bad because
Yeah, I have that
Oh
too.
yes.
I have that.
so
We were talking about that when you left the room a second ago.
here's a quote at Milltown. Activities like hiking and fishing might seem harmless, but they could take up time you could spend on God instead. Writing letters and visiting old people is more fruitful. 100% of your time should go to God. And then at Saginaw, they added on to that list and they said hunting, checking your phone before praying, looking at the news, and politics are all things that take away your time from God. So those were like,
So actually,
they're not saying don't do those things, but they're kind of maybe in the category of movie theaters now.
right. Yeah, that category of things you shouldn't do is spreading. So I actually have a list. I have 8 items on my list that I could remember when I had time to write it down. These are things that are not as good as prayer. Walking. Walking.
Except that worker who said every time I take a walk with a brother worker, it gets better and better.
Yeah. Okay. The innuendo. We'll come back to
Or the worker that told me every time that she had urges
Yeah.
of anxiety, she just took a walk.
So
Well,
sometimes
okay, so
walking
prayer-
is okay.
prayer is not good.
Walking is better than sex, but continue.
Right. Okay. So we have I have walking, hiking, hunting, fishing, air travel, your phone, the news, and the Olympics. Those are all things you should not do before you pray. That's prayers
so
first.
funny. I wonder if when he said Olympics, I heard politics or something because I
Oh, what if
had
it is
almost
politics?
the same list, but then I put politics at the end.
Doesn't matter. Prayer's better than both of those
Either would
things.
be bad.
That's right.
Yeah.
But every time I look back in our chat at like a time that we were talking about the sermons, it's all just
Just
it's all
outrageous.
just so good. It's terrible.
Read some of it.
Like the weirdest stories. They told a story. I think it was Rob told a story about a gorilla that like.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't Harambe. It was another one.
No, it was the other gorilla that didn't hurt
the
a
gorilla
kid.
that didn't hurt the child. And then so he was talking about when he went to a house. What?
What?
Huh?
That's so
We're
hilarious.
just laughing about gorillas still.
I forgot about the
Like, what did I do? Okay, so he went to a house and people like clearly had questions for him or like were upset about something, and he said that it was just the house was full of anger, and it made him. Of course, I wasn't angry, he said, but the house was full of anger. It felt good to leave. And so he left, and then as soon as he got in the car, a young guy called him and said that the stuff happening in the kingdom, pushed him off the fence, and he has to go into the ministry. And he's like, when can I start? And Rob said, the road of the Lamb turns its back on the road of anger, and that's why you are all here today. You're all here because you turned your back on the people who have concerns.
Yeah, I love the story of the one-off person who decided to go in the work after 100 have left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
91, I guess. I don't know. 99 left in one state. Did we invert that sermon? I don't know.
Yeah. The other thing they kept saying was like, oh, this probably isn't true, but this is what I got from it, or like I should probably have looked this up to see if it's real, but anyway,
But here it is anyway.
Like they said that so much.
Well, no, go ahead.
Sorry, I have strong feelings about that exact thing. I have a rant on my phone that I wrote down about that. This whole thing about the level of effort that some of the older brother workers put into their sermons. The 4 of us, any one of us could walk up and pick up a microphone and do 45 minutes that are more educated on what they're talking about than the effort that they put in. It's shocking to me how little effort some of these guys put in. How many times did an older brother worker say, I didn't take the time to look this up. I don't know if this is really true, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's a good story.
Literally in those words.
Literally in those words. I wrote down at the very top of my list, most of these stories don't go into details. They'll literally say, well, we don't need to worry about the details, or I don't have all the details, but it's so frustrating to me to listen because I know people who are still in meetings and still going, and relationships with those people isn't always great. And that is every single person in those meetings is having that experience right now. It came up a lot in testimonies of like, hey, my family's not here. My meeting is smaller, whatever. A worker I know has left or whatever. There's a lot going on. And we've already talked about how the workers just refuse to even address why that is, and absolutely straw man it as everyone's evil except us. But the thing that's frustrating to listen to, and maybe I'm overreacting because I'm not there and those people don't seem to care, is these older brother workers who get up there and just wing it for 40 minutes, do not put any effort into what they're saying. They don't look up verses. They tell story in the seed. Sometimes they run out of topic and just ramble for a while and tell stories about something they just thought of. They tell stories that are not true.
The number of times in our chat that we're like, well, that never happened.
Yeah. The idea that the church has been absolutely torn apart from the inside. Let's be very clear about that. It tore itself apart from the inside. And every single family has been torn apart in some way. And everybody who is at convention has people who have left them, and that has been really difficult and traumatic for everyone involved. And these workers can't put an ounce of effort into a sermon. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You're going to get up there and microwave the sower and the seed again? You're going to give us leftovers from some poor, just absolute zero effort, pulling out a parable that somebody's already talked about 5 times.
I cannot emphasize enough
Give them
how
something.
Frequently that parable was mentioned.
It's crazy. It's crazy to me that the church is that the people who are in power, and it seems proportional to power to me, like inversely proportional. The older brother workers who have a lot of power absolutely they feel no effort. They don't feel any responsibility toward the people who've left. They feel no responsibility toward the people who are in
They're on
either.
autopilot.
And that's what's confusing to me. This whole group, the fact that it has gone from the peak of whatever it was, whatever numbers, doesn't matter, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, to what it is now, under their watch. And everyone underneath them has had their families torn apart in a traumatic way. There is so many people in therapy right now and getting recovery funds trying to get their lives together. And those guys are up there not caring and microwaving sermons that any of us could make up. It's insulting. It's absolutely insulting what those guys do. A lot of those younger workers do put in effort, and a lot of the sisters do put in effort. They're trying. They want to feed the flock. The older brothers don't. Most of them don't. And I'm split between two things because I think most of them fall into that category. Most of them, I don't even respect them as people anymore for what I heard this year. There's some of them that I feel bad for because I think some of them would love to do anything else where they could use their brain. You know, some of them talked about history and science and stuff. And I'm like, wouldn't they love to crack a history book? Wouldn't they love to
talk about science?
They tried. But wouldn't they love to go do something with their lives? But their lives are being wasted too because of this nonsense. It's it made me so furious listening to this nonsense from the platform. It's like, give some effort to the people who are there, who tore their own families apart to be subservient to you on the platform. Give them something.
But the people who are there,
they don't
are choosing to be there.
I'm outraged and they're not. Yeah,
like, yeah, exactly.
And the workers, the older brother workers, have the most responsibility, and they are accepting the least responsibility.
Yeah.
And then you have like the younger workers who have the least power, the least are given the least responsibility or sway, and they are feeling the heaviest load of like actually trying to communicate with people. And then you have the people who have absolutely no power and are upset about stuff, and it's just like, well, too bad. You can talk to these younger workers and they will sit in despair with you because they're feeling it too, but the only people who can do something don't care.
Yeah, the responsibility and authority are inversely proportional. So the people who have all the authority have no responsibility to do anything, and that includes take care of the people inside. And it's obvious when you're on the outside. On the inside, when we were inside, I just didn't pay attention to that stuff because I thought everybody's working. I thought everything was working. But from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, these guys are just cruise control. They're not doing anything. They don't care.
Yeah, all they care about is painting it in some light where people feel special. Like when we were talking about like how many times in the chat we've said, well, that never happened when a worker's telling a story or something. At Saginaw, Doyle, the overseer, said there are so many people here, about 200 more than last year. Last year, there were 2 weeks of Saginaw. This year, there's 1 week of Saginaw. They eliminated an entire convention, and he was excited that they had 200 more people. That's so dishonest. He knows that they got rid of a week. He's the overseer. And he's trying to spin it live for the people who are sitting there listening. He's spinning it to make it sound like they're great.
And I feel like in those instances, he's trying to like reassure the people, but at the same time, he's also trying to reassure himself as well.
Yeah.
I think it would pain him to even come to the realization that was like what he's saying has no bearing on reality.
My jaw dropped when I heard that. I was like, weren't there 2 Saginaws last year? They
Yeah.
eliminated an entire convention and he's excited. It was
Yeah,
bizarre.
it's so
These-
wild to
these
hear them
guys-
talk. Go ahead.
So I was just saying, as long as they can keep the fear on, like I was saying earlier, as long as they can tell the stories that cement where the lines are and the fear, they don't actually have to do any of the problem solving or think critically or any of it. Like none of that actually matters because this is what works. If the people, like they have all of these issues and yet they're there because of the fear, then all you have to preach is the fear. You don't actually have to deal with anything else. You just have to preach what you've always preached.
It just seems like that the church has been so reduced in size, and they're talking about like, oh, there's more here than last year when we had more conventions, or there might be a reawakening. Who knows? Maybe more people will come soon. It's like, is there any part of you that's worried about why those people left?
No.
I get that you don't care. We've established that the older brother workers, the leadership in the 2x2s don't care about people at all and don't care about their suffering. But you'd think they would be concerned about the size of the church that's supporting them. You'd think they'd be saying, okay, how can we do this? We can say anything, clearly. We can just make things up. We can tell all kinds of stories, but it seems like they should gear those stories toward growing the church in some way, or at least recovering from the absolute hemorrhaging that's happening right now. And they're not interested in that. And that's confusing to me.
But remember when that overseer meeting was leaked and Daryl was like, oh, we might lose half of Olympia over this one, haha,
Right.
or half of Seattle. We might lose Olympia and half of Seattle over this, but, and then he says something stupid and then he laughed it off. It's like,
Yeah, imagine
It was
any
not a
other.
convention, or they were.
Oh yeah, in the worker meeting back.
yeah, I said it was
Yeah,
the overseer
the
meeting.
Northwest
Yeah,
one.
Yeah,
The
it
leak.
was something about convention, wasn't it?
He said we might lose Olympia, and then
Or-
later he referenced half of Seattle or something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird to have the workers just supported by the friends, and they don't seem concerned that they're leaving. And that seems like just a really obvious concern, but I guess they have faith. So
Yeah, I mean, in any other organization, there would be management looking at graphs and like seeing the
Yeah.
trajectories and being like, "Holy crap, we've got to do something."
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
and like, it's funny because there's somebody that has created, the person that keeps track of the all the workers like from year to year. They have on that same spreadsheet the decline graph, and it shows it. If it follows the same trajectory, it shows it petering out to zero in
Yeah.
whatever 30 years or 40 years or something like that. Do you
Mhm.
think a single overseer has looked at something similar and
They're
had
not gonna-
any single thought?
They're not going to be here in 30 years. Not a single single
Well,
overseer.
There is that. That's a fair
They
point. That's
don't
true.
care. And also, like, it would take a very, very large, like, even a bigger reduction in numbers for them to actually be affected in what they're able to do in their livelihood. Like,
yeah.
the
Yeah.
people who are staying are doubling down, a lot of them. And, like, they have so much money
Mhm.
as it is. Like, the overseers aren't actually being affected by this. They just want the troublemakers gone. So it doesn't
Yeah.
bother them. Or people that disagree with this are leaving. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, it's going to get to it will hit that whatever that magical
But they feel invincible.
number is.
Will it, though?
I think.
Because, like, I
it
feel like
has
two people will keep them going. Like,
I
You know
mean,
what I
Ed
mean?
Alexander was crying about the empty benches. There's
Yeah.
there is a part of him that's freaking out a little bit.
Right.
If
Yeah.
Well, and
That's
also
true.
as long as it's
Noticing
proportional,
that.
if you have proportional friends and workers, you can always support a certain proportion, I
It's
guess.
true.
So if
Yeah.
both of those things are going down equally, then I guess
An interesting thing that will be something to watch over the next decade really is how many workers are going into the work, because so many of the people who left were our generation with young kids. So you have a lot of boomers who stayed, and then maybe there is some still in every age range, but like so many families with kids left, especially kids who were around professing age where they would start professing. So in 10-15 years, are there gonna be any workers of age going in the work? That will be really interesting to kind of watch and keep
Yeah,
track.
I wish I knew the median age right now of the ministry.
Yeah,
But I can pretty safely assume that it's
older.
Over 50.
over 50 for sure, and maybe even over 60.
Mm.
I
And
would
so
say
yeah, 20 to
in the
30
next
years.
decade, you're gonna have a ton of workers dying off just from old age, and then
But
you're
think
gonna
of all
have
the funerals.
you're not going to be replaced as much. So like you are going to end up with this, which is already happening on the East Coast, where they have spread their workers way thin because they don't have enough to cover the whole areas that they need.
I'm
Yeah, so many
really
2x2.
relying on the assumption that anybody watching this has 2x2 history enough to understand that I'm not just really excited about funerals.
No, it's
Yeah.
I was just saying to Kyle the other day, I was like, we went to more funerals by the age of 5 than most people attend in a lifetime. It was
We
like,
went to more funerals than birthdays.
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
More
Yeah.
funerals than anything, really.
And as a
Yeah.
child, that's really weird.
It's so
Saw
bizarre.
so many dead bodies, but not in movies.
Yeah. That would have messed us up.
Yeah. Back to the worker worship. I have a couple of notes I wrote down from Parma. People were thanking and talking about workers by name in their testimonies. So, like, I'm thankful for Steve Pearson and Jack Carroll. He used to say this, or Everett Blair, or Willie Jameson, or whatever. That was like a weird. The worker worship was so thick this year. And
It's
then
a bad idea.
and at Walla Walla, there
Not
was that
learned.
sister worker who was from the Philippines, and she was native there.
Oh yeah.
And she was talking about how the 2x2s gave them, well, she didn't say 2x2s. She was like, in the Philippines, we have a name for ourselves. And she wouldn't say who it was, but there was this worker who came and brought the gospel to the Philippines. It would have been like a white brother worker.
She even said, she said at one point, these two white men.
These two white men, she said, two white men came to the Philippines and they brought the gospel there. And we still call it that. That was the Vietnam era in the 70s. And we still call it the name of ourselves is named after that brother worker. And she wouldn't say his name. We're like, say the name, say the name. What is it?
I'm dying to know that name.
But
Yeah.
like, let's
Somebody
say
will know what it is.
it wasn't Willie Jameson, but let's say it was. Then they would be like, what, the Jamesonites or something? Like,
Oh, what if
Something
it
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The colonial vibes, because
Like
that sister worker
She was
spoke
at every
at a
convention.
number of conventions, and in a lot of them, I think she did make reference to
The men.
how the men that brought the ministry over there, and like it's really sad hearing somebody just accepting the colonialism and
Yep.
celebrating it.
yeah.
That was another theme, was like, I don't know what to say tonight. I couldn't get anything from God telling me what to say. So I'm just going to tell my testimony because I figured you guys would like to know that.
Mhm.
Like, that was a whole thing this year.
Yeah,
We
I
got
really
this several times.
Yeah.
Because you guys probably want to know how I joined this church.
Someone at Post Falls said, leaving meetings leads to addiction, no morals, our own will. I just was listing things that they were talking about. They referenced the prodigal son.
A lot of that.
If we are just honest with ourselves, people who leave meetings, we can admit it isn't what we thought it would be, leaving meetings.
It's like you leave meeting and you just open the door and walk directly onto the Vegas Strip. From
But
the
it
meeting.
isn't. It
Better than
isn't what
Burning Man.
anybody thought it would be. Here's the thing. They're right.
Yeah.
It's not what anybody thinks it's going to be. Because everybody thinks they're going to walk out onto the Vegas Strip.
Yeah.
That's actually what people think, is that they're going to walk out into this place of just debauchery and peril. And they walk out and like, oh, it's actually, this is a whole therapy theme for me right now. So rant, but yeah, I mean, like, what they told you was safe was not safe. And what they told you was not safe turns out most of the time is safe.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And what they told you was not safe deep down inside yourself is safe. And what they told you was not safe outside of the figurative compound walls actually turns out it's a pretty safe place, like safer psychologically than inside the compound.
Yeah, I've talked about that a lot in therapy too, like this idea of safety. And my therapist asked me a while ago, like, do you still see the 2x2s and the world as separate things? And I was like, yeah, I actually do. Like, it's hard for me to combine them in my head. He's like, you know, the 2x2s are part of the world. So like, anything that happens to the world can happen to 2x2s. They're not actually different.
I think you put that in our chat, but it wasn't until you just now said it that I realized how crazy that is.
Right?
Yeah.
It's still in my head. There's like 2x2s and the world. It's still hard for me to mesh those things.
Yeah, and I don't know if maybe they never will fully mesh, like, because you think of like other high control religions out there, and yet the 2x2s aren't in the same group in my brain as all those other ones.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I feel like I have to almost prove it to myself that they're similar. Even like I think I do that a lot on my YouTube channel. I start talking, and it's like at the end of it, I'm really just talking to myself about my group and the other groups.
Yeah.
And trying to, it's like, it's obvious to anybody else that that's the same thing, but not to me even still.
But think how often in our support group, people who are freshly out of meetings still have that fear of like, will bad things happen to me now? Or I left meetings and I'm going through this really difficult personal experience in my life. Is it because I left meetings? Like, I can't get rid of that. And it's like, no, bad things happen to people in meetings too. They're in the world. Like anything that isn't safe or is bad or scary or hard, 2x2s are the world. Like they yeah, I don't know why that's like such a mind-blowing concept.
Yeah,
But they're so good
it
at
really is.
real time, though. They're so good at telling a story that makes their experience unique in some way.
Yeah, my experience is God led.
Right.
Their experience is just chaotic and scary because God's not in it. It's, they differentiate it.
There's meaning in whatever happens to me.
Right.
Well, and then they personalize it too. So it's like if the bad thing happens, then you must have failed in some way. And so there's no understanding that sometimes bad things happen. Sometimes you get in a car crash anyway. It's not because they tested the meeting that night. You know?
Right. Except they're not really taking that right now. They're having this bad thing has happened to all of us. We've just lost all these people. This bad thing has happened. But they're not doing the same thing. They're not doing the thing like, what are we doing wrong?
Yeah, no.
They're not applying that to
their
themselves.
fault.
It only applies outside of the walls.
Yeah. It's just like how they sit and wait for something to happen to them. It's the same thing when something bad is happening. They're like, well, this wasn't my fault because I wasn't doing anything. I'm just sitting here. Like, that's
really interesting, actually, because it's like the combination of those two things, the combination of everything that happens has some sort of spiritual meaning and I shouldn't do anything. That's why everybody's scared of the world, because it's like things happen in the world and you have some agency. I've talked about that on my channel and some other places too. It's a thought exercise to understand that not only you, but everyone else you come in contact with has agency and can affect yourself and the world on purpose if you want. And therefore, the choices you make are actually kind of your responsibility. It's always funny when people think that...
That's why they don't want agency, because then they have accountability and they don't want...
It's freedom from choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Freedom, exactly. It's so funny to think that like somehow in their mind that works with like, if you're in meetings, you're really responsible for all this stuff, but you also don't make any choices. It's like it makes you very like kind of clenched up, like, oh no, things are happening. Is it because I didn't pray enough? Because I can't actually do anything to affect these things. I have to like hope for the best, and then I have to add meaning to whatever happened, rather than take any sort of like initiative at all. And so the idea of taking initiative is actually kind of a foreign feeling. I think it's something we all have to work through.
It's just like emotions. Like you can't have strong emotions. You can't take strong action. There's nothing. You always just have to sit in the middle.
Something I just thought of is like they're afraid that if you walk outside, you might have a piano fall, on top of you, not realizing that inside the house, just on the next floor up, there's a piano that's just about to fall through the ceiling. Yeah. And it's owned by the people that you're in the house with.
Right.
Yeah. The other way they like almost indoctrinate kids into this idea is, I remember as a kid seeing people go through difficult things like, life-threatening illness or losing a child or horrible things that happen to everyone in life sometimes. And people would say, imagine going through this without God. So you're like, however bad that fear and sorrow and hurt and despair or whatever the person might be going through is, you imagine it being like 100 times worse because that person has God. And so you're just imagining absolutely like unimaginable suffering or something. And it scares you. Like it makes you afraid of leaving meetings because it's got to be so much worse.
But here's the thing. When they say we go through this with God, that gives them also an out to doing anything because that person has God. Like,
in fact, the suffering
has God in their situation, like, so we don't need to do as much. Whereas when you leave, turns out God's not the scapegoat for everything for everybody. And you actually might get support from friends, like deeply supportive.
But I was just going to say, like, support, like in the 2x2, suffering is righteous. If you're suffering, you're doing something right. Like, we're not supposed to really have joy in this life. It's supposed to be hard. We're supposed to be corrected. We're supposed to be pruned. And that is supposed to hurt and feel bad. And then we suffer all through this life because that's what Jesus did. And then in the next life, you get your reward. So it's like if you're too happy and you're not suffering enough, you're not doing something right.
Yeah.
We are like really way off the tracks here.
We are going. We're having a little therapy session.
But it all ties into the messaging. I mean, it's all, this is all what you do with the messaging that they gave.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
and we're way off the tracks.
We're applying
I pointed out.
We're taking what we heard at convention and applying it to our lives right now.
We're possessing as well as professing.
I forgot about that phrase.
To take things off into a different realm here, one thing that I had written down, one of the few things is, this is Larry Greenaway said, there's a lie out there in the world. It's called the Trinity Doctrine. It's
Yeah.
the belief of millions of so-called Christians. The
So-called
fact that we do
Christians.
not believe it puts us in the cult class.
That was
Yeah.
quite the statement.
Can you
It's always
imagine?
fun to hear them
And he
just
didn't
say
refute
the
it.
word cult, and he didn't refute it. He was like, "Yep,
That was the
if
end of
that
the
puts us in
statement.
the cult class, then I guess we're a
Yeah.
cult."
That's
I've
a
never
first,
heard
right?
that.
I don't think I've ever heard that either. Yeah.
But
To
it
actually say the
actually
word cult on the
makes
platform.
sense.
Mhm.
It's like most the churches that don't follow the Trinity doctrine are typically the ones that are also high demand.
It's true. When I was leaving meetings, I was Googling churches in our area just to like see what they teach, because I was like, I was hearing that our doctrine was quite different from mainstream Christianity, and I was like, how though? So I was looking on their websites, and most of them have like pages of like, here's what we believe, and here's like the tenets of our doctrine or whatever. And there was a church that actually had listed like red flags of a cult or a dangerous religion, and one of them was not believing in the Trinity. It was right on their like, if a church says they don't believe in the Trinity, there were a bunch of other things that were 2x2 related too. I wish I could not believing that Jesus is God was one of them,
Which
Right.
is
kind of the
Same
same
thing,
thing.
Kind of the
I guess.
Trinity, yeah.
well,
Yeah.
What was the other one? There's like another one. Oh, the like grace versus works doctrine.
Yeah.
That one was in there.
I
Yeah.
was literally just talking to my therapist about this. Bring therapy back in here, because I said something, and I said something about human nature, and she's like, "Hold on, back up.
Yeah.
What phrase was that?" I was, well, human nature, because I was talking about how the same thing I was just mentioning, how like we were taught that the thing way down deep inside us was actually evil and bad.
Mhm.
Our human nature was inherently bad
Yeah.
and dangerous and
Mhm.
could only do the wrong things.
Yeah.
And so she was like, "Wait a minute, she's like, "I've never heard that phrase used in that way." She's like, "We say human nature like, oh, it's only human nature. Like, oh, this is
What humans do.
what humans do because we are creatures. Like, this is just, it's human nature to want to be loved, right? Like those type of things." And she was just kind of blown away that like there was a whole other definition and connotation for that phrase. And then I was trying to explain like, but you got human nature and then like God's nature, and I still can't quite put a finger on what they would call it from the platform, but like your second nature. And she's like, so that's another phrase that doesn't jive with how I use it. Like second nature means like it's basically like it's natural to me, but that's
Yeah.
that's
Interesting.
not not this second nature. This second nature is not easy to implement.
Yeah, it's God's nature.
And then she was like, okay, well, so do they, because I also mentioned that they don't believe in the Trinity. And so she was, okay, so then how do you get the second nature? Like that's Jesus's nature. And I was like, yeah, another difference is that between them and other religions is often, if you ask somebody in a different brand of Christianity why he came to earth, they would often say, to die for our sins. And so allow, a lot of, I think if you ask the 2x2s, I think this would be a fascinating little info collection, be to hear their answers, because I think a lot of them would be to be an example to us of how we should live. And that's like totally contrary to what most mainstream Christianity sees him as. They don't see him as an example of how to live. And my therapist was like, wait a minute, you're supposed to try to live like him, but do they believe that he was the Son of God? And I was like, well, yeah. Okay, so he had that nature. How are you supposed to live perfectly like him? I'm like, well, you can't.
You can't. You're always
like I heard myself saying that, like, you can't.
Yeah.
But that's why he came, was so that you could, but you can't.
Yeah.
But
that's why we're all like always striving for perfection and having mental breakdowns and OCD and anxiety and depression, because you can't be perfect.
That's why shame is the only acceptable emotion.
Yeah. Yep.
But also that we all have that complete inability to describe it. Like, it's funny because we've had our group for like 3.5 years now, something like that. And you guys have been out a lot longer than we have, but we've been out for 5-6 years now. And we still have a very difficult time verbally explaining what in the world we believed growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to say that that's like some sort of purposeful thing that the workers are doing to keep people whatever, but culturally it's working for them. The inability to talk about the thing we're talking about, but also feel like if you don't understand it, you don't have the spirit, just keeps people really stuck. And so, and the way that comes out now is when something gets very tangible, like the CSA situation, they can't talk about that either. It's like, it's almost as if ever telling the truth and talking like literally and speaking to the tangible nature of something will make the group fall apart completely. It's like everyone's scared to pull out the wrong Jenga block. So
Yeah.
they're just talking around the thing the whole time, and that becomes second nature to the point that we're all doing it now, still years after leaving. It's like it's really, really difficult for us to sit down and go, okay, but what did I actually believe?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I got to think about that. And you mentioned somebody bringing up the Trinity. Rob also talked about the Trinity, that we don't believe that God didn't get all creative and turn into Jesus, is what he said. He didn't use his creativity. But that's funny too, because it's like they usually don't even talk directly about that. Rob's one of the few workers that has, but yeah, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird to like to be in a group that lasted that long without ever having a point.
Yeah.
And a name.
I need to do this next time we listen to some sermons. Is I need to somehow have some to time how often they're talking like literally and how often they're spiritualizing something, like how often they're talking figuratively, because I'm pretty sure that figurative is like 90% of it.
This sounds like a job for ChatGPT.
Oh, you know what?
You're gonna say echo chamber.
Yeah. But seriously, like how much of this sermon was like in figurative imagery and how much of it was in straightforward, like understandable language?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
None of it.
Pretty much the last thing I had on my notes was I made a note at kind of the end of all of our conventions that it was really interesting from testimonies how many people mentioned in a testimony that they were getting pushback from friends or family members for being a 2x2. Well, they didn't say 2x2, but for going to meetings. I remember like a story of a lady saying her best friend wasn't bringing her kids this year, and she spun it to make it sound like it was because they were just too busy. But then her friend said something like, how can you bring your kids to that place or something? Like there was a lot of, that's something I've never heard before. And I think and in fact, someone had mentioned just like a coworker saying something about like,
he said cult. He called it on the grounds.
So what I'm hearing from that is that people are Googling it. Like, oh, you're going to a church convention? What's it called? They're Googling it and finding information and then telling their friends and family, like, why are you part of this? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
That's new. That's not something that I remember hearing before. Yeah. That was interesting.
Going back, Abby made reference to this, Ed Alexander, but him saying that it's mostly the third, fourth, and fifth generation people who are leaving the church because they've gotten complacent.
Funny, because all the first and second generation, most of them are dead. But
yeah.
And he said the church is third, fourth, and fifth generation right now.
He's talking about people.
I know, but how many people have converted in?
Yeah.
So, like statistically, if this many people leave your church, how many of them are going to be born and raised?
He was saying converts don't leave because they already know what's out there in the world. So
I also think it's baloney. Like,
oh, it is.
Of course it is. Yeah, no, he makes it up.
It totally is. Like I said, like 95% of the people, if not more, are born and raised. So of course those are the people that's leaving.
Yeah, it just gives you a little peek into what's going on inside his brain. Yeah. To just that's what's wrong with those people is they got complacent because they were just born into it. They didn't have to work. They didn't have to do the hard work of changing their minds about everything that they know about Christianity.
He spun it into, from there, he went into basically telling parents they need to shape up and teach these things to their kids better because, look, your kids are leaving. Like, that's clearly the parents' fault.
Yeah, that's clearly got to be the fault of the individual. It can't possibly be systemic failure by the people in power. There's no chance that that's possible. It has to be. It can't be.
Yeah, parents are failing.
It can't be that the system itself has any failures whatsoever. It has to be all of you are failing individually.
It's the people with no authority and all the responsibility that are at fault.
The fascinating part about that was that his message, while we heard it and we're like, holy crap, it was taken by the congregation very seriously because many people referenced it in their testimonies.
So many
and just making sure I just got to make sure that I'm being a good example for my kids and showing them the right way.
It was a good way for them to virtue signal too. A lot of people, when they start their conventions or their testimonies, are like, I professed here 50 years ago, or, like I've been professing for this long, like there's this whole thing. And so it was also a chance for them to slip in like what generation they were.
Yeah.
So people would slip in like, I'm fifth generation. And it was like this chance for them to do that. But that's where his quote came from of like, every family has an Abraham. And that's like the person who converted in was the Abraham.
Right.
Every family has that like figurehead somewhere up in their family that they come from. It's like that they're supposed to hold this like heavy reverence for, and then they need to also, but apparently they also need to be that for all of their future generations, or else they're failing everybody.
He used the word legacies, and then everybody loved that and like quoted it over and over again. Like,
which has got to be hard for 80% of the people sitting there to hear, though, right? Because everybody in there has been affected by somebody leaving at this point. So the very few families that are, the special elect,
that have the legacy still.
Yeah, exactly. Who still have that intact are feeling great about it. That's going to be in their testimony for a long time. But everybody else has got to be feeling terrible about that, I would think.
And how many parents are sitting there who've had kids leave, whether adult kids or teen kids or whatever ages, who he's basically saying like, yeah, it's the parents' fault.
Yeah, you
like,
failed, basically.
That's a terrible thing to tell everybody who's still there. You're blaming the people who are still there for the people who left.
You got to wonder, maybe there's a body count from that exact message. Like, it resonated with some people and they said it in their testimonies, and then there's another portion of people that were like, oh, he just like took a dig at me.
Yeah, I wonder if you would even hear it that way if you were in. Like, sometimes I try to climb into
that's the thing.
Your brain, and I'm like, how would I have heard that back then?
Right.
Because your brain automatically filters it in such a way that the worker sounds good, because worker's always good. So like, you would hear it filtered through this, mind of like, well, clearly he wasn't insulting me, so he must have been.
Yeah, that's true.
Seriously, I sometimes wish we could just share like our chat.
I know.
Of the
it's so long. We still talk every day. It's crazy.
Yeah. Just the camels. That was hilarious. The camel stuff. I said, stop saying Abigail, and Kyle says, or a few of us can be an Abigail in our own strength, try as we might. I'm so glad there's no Kyles in the Bible, unless there were a cool mean one who did lots of smiting. And Mike says, ends up being a eunuch or something. Great singer though. And Kyle says, and he played the harp for David. Me, the fuck he did. Whenever I need a laugh, really, this is just what I should do. Is our live chatting about convention is the funniest parts of our thread.
That's how we handle it. Like, sorry, Micah. So a lot of people wonder, like, how can you guys be listening to convention? Why would you do that to yourself? It's like, because it's so much more fun to like, it is healing in a way to do it together and laugh about it, and we're kind of irreverent with it, and it's a completely different it's like reliving the experience in a way that's much more healthy and healing for us, I think.
Yeah, it's not that fun to do by yourself.
No.
I know when like Mike gets fed up with it, and I like it starts to bother me more too. Like internally, I'm just like, this is more depressing than anything because I can't laugh about it with somebody.
Right. Yeah, I go in and out of like tolerant, my ability to tolerate it. I'm just
not just laughing at it, but also being able to point out the harm. Like we sat underneath it for so long, not even having the inkling to question and not being allowed to. And now we get to say, well, that's some bullshit. Like that, we get to sit there and say out loud in real time, like, oh no, that's super harmful, and this is why it's wrong. And our kids might hear it and go, oh, that's super harmful, and this is why.
I'm just randomly looking over the chat where I just said, this guy is a worker who kicks dogs.
We should have.
And also, like, that's such a theme.
It
like,
is.
There's a whole subset of workers that we've heard stories about them kicking dogs.
I mean, if you're scared of dogs, it's rough to be a worker, right? You got to go to all these homes.
That's about showing dominance, really.
We had a worker
over the friends.
We had a worker who would come over and like, we had a dog outside, and he would point at it and be like, "Sin lieth at the door." Like, okay, I had our dog.
And Kyle said, I took my earbud out for a second. Now he's talking about gorillas.
I did. I was doing something. I put my earbud down. I pick it up, and I come back, and they're just going on about gorillas. And I was like, you lost me already.
You have to explain the camel thing. That was so.
I don't remember
funny.
The camel thing.
The camel.
Okay, I gotta scroll up for a second. It took a turn. It took a turn.
As they do.
The four of us are children sometimes, with our sense of humor.
Oh, all the stuff about how like all this whole family was converted and became workers or something like that. Like there was those stories too.
Yeah, I have some thoughts.
That I have heard many times.
Yeah, you can go. There was a worker who was talking about a meeting he had been in that a whole bunch of them, like I'll just say 8 because I think it was about that many,
I think that's
had gone into the ministry, And he was talking about that as a victory. And I was talking to somebody else about that later, about that particular sermon, who I think this person also heard it, who I was talking to. And they're like, you know what? I heard him or somebody else tell a similar sermon about a bunch of workers, a bunch of kids somewhere that were in a meeting at one point, all together around a convention. They all went to work. And that worker was telling the story. And the person I was talking to knew those people and said, most of them are out now. The work chewed them up and spit them out. Yeah. And I'd never thought about that. I was like, that's a really interesting point, that a lot of these stories about this person fought through all this adversity to come to meeting, or this person came to meeting and their family didn't like that they did it, but they did it anyway. And then all their family's professing, or all these people went to work.
Those but they stories, don't say all their family is professing. They say all their family profess.
Yeah, those stories are timestamped for when they happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And we don't know what happened going forward. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting point. This guy's telling a story about 8 people from one meeting that went in the work. Are they all still in the work? Does this story even valid at all, or does it make the exact opposite point?
Right. Yeah, statistically, it's impossible for all 8 of those people to still be in the work.
Yeah, so I really think it would just be funny to share just like individual quotes at some point. These it's just
Our
so
gem.
funny. It's just like repetition equals good. Vain repetition equals bad. You figure out which is which.
Yeah.
That was
such a good point.
Kyle says there might be a creepier way to talk about these kids, but probably not.
There was
a thing about them saying good morning.
There was an actual what?
It was a whole thing about the kids in South America saying good morning. They always say good morning to their parents.
Well, I remember,
as if nobody else in the world says good morning, like as if this is a new concept.
There was a sermon where he talked about a kid literally coming into his room.
Yeah, it was the same sermon.
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. Yeah.
It's like,
so the camel thing. He was explaining how when a camel gets up or something, or when it gets down or something like that, it has to kneel first. It has its front down and its back up, and it's like kneeling. And there was something about this having to kneel first, and Mike says, writing notes furiously, be like a camel in prayer.
Was looking at her.
Yeah, and so then there was a dirty joke made, and then it evolved from there. Kyle, did he see it? So he clearly paused, and usually we would say, did he have a stroke? But Kyle says, did he see a camel on his phone and get distracted? Or he says, it's okay, guys, the kids are safe, but lock up your camels.
Jeez. I forgot about that completely.
And then throughout the whole, maybe even the next meeting, it was camel.
Oh, because I think that might have been the worker who was talking about not wanting to be on their phone too, or something.
I think it was Rob.
I got so many Rob.
He was talking about his phone like it was evil for him, and I was like, "What is this dude doing on his phone?
Like, what do you? Yeah, he said something.
Looking at camels or what?"
He was the one that talked about 2 brothers and going on like their relationship. Every time they go on a walk, it gets better and better and better. And I'm like, a man and his best camel.
Not brothers, like they were not related. But yeah,
I don't even know.
The brother worker thing was like, it was a worker talking about one of his companions, and he's like, every time we went on a walk, it just got more and more deep and amazing, and just like he just went on and on about this relationship he had with his companion, that like they would go on walks together, and that was weird.
Oh man, that's painful.
Yeah. I had to join back in.
And we didn't even really talk too much about the innuendo piece of all this.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know, maybe we got to keep it PG-13 or something.
Yeah.
I'm sure like everyone can imagine.
Actually refrained from quite a bit of the worst stuff. The next speaker said sheep have needs, and somebody said camels do too.
There's a lot about Jesus coming. They sing about Jesus coming. They talk about Jesus coming.
Okay, I recited one of the hymns to my therapist the other day, and she was like just dying on the floor. Like it is so like if you were trying to write it to where it was almost obvious, but you could probably have some plausible deniability, that's how you would write it. There's one more little quote in here.
Pretty raunchy.
This guy was talking about some person who is a dermatologist, and Kari says dermatology equals acceptable career. Check. Like as we're taking notes of like what you can't do and what you can do. And he said something about how the ear, like it's just so crazy how this thing that can hear is also so like it's also the same as your balance, something like that. And he said, I wonder if God did that on purpose. And Kari says, what do you think is the alternative, though? And Mike says, no, God sneezed and accidentally put the balance magic next to the hearing magic. Like, I know it's not maybe not that funny to everybody else, but like
It was really
listening
funny
to
though.
sermons and being able to do this with
Yeah.
them is pretty darn
Well, also it's like
hard.
the alternative is it evolved that way. So like,
Right.
Can't do
I
that.
wonder if,
Right.
and he genuinely was like, it just occurred to him. He's like, I wonder if God planned it that way, or if God made it that way on purpose, or something. It was so funny.
Turns out he did it like with that way with almost every mammal on
Yeah.
the planet.
Yeah. Well, and it's amazing that he actually said, I wonder, because a lot of them were saying, this is what Jesus was thinking. This is what so-and-so in the Bible was thinking. This is what actually, this is what also happened after this that is not in the Bible at all.
Yeah, it's funny when every once in a while there's just a sliver of self-awareness that slips in accidentally, and it's chaos. I actually have one of those. One of the workers at Boring, just in context, it kind of made sense, but it was so funny anyway. He just said that he just ended like this little thing with, he said, "Are we just brainwashed? I hope not." And I was like,
Yeah.
that's a funny way to say that. Like, there's so many ways to say that, but to say it that way almost sounds like you were like breaking the third wall for a second. You know, like
It was the
looking at
same.
the camera.
That is so funny.
It was Ed Alexander. It was the same thing with
Might have
the
been.
legacy, because it was, he said like, this isn't a ritual. This is a lifestyle or something like that. It's not ritual, it's life. And that's when he said, he also said that, I'm sure it's in here. Some of these
you get sidetracked every time you go into the chat.
I know, but it's so funny. Newest bad thing equals hunting, and then it's just Kari saying, fuck off, Ed, and Kyle saying, I don't like what he's saying next. Fuck this and fuck you. This is ridiculous.
What was he saying?
It doesn't matter anything. Any of this stuff.
This is not the fault of parents. He's blaming the friends for this.
yeah.
Blaming
Right,
it's the
right.
same thing. But like,
Yes.
it's just so hilarious when our thread is like these big things, and all of a sudden it's just like, fuck you, fuck this, I hate this. No.
We're all like laughing about something, and all of a sudden we all get so angry.
Yeah, and nobody reading the thread could ever tell what we were upset about.
No. We can't even remember half the time because a lot of it's like, oh, we can tell where this is going, you know.
Yeah.
Somebody can just hop in the thread and say that, and then like the other people are like, oh, they're listening to the meeting, let me dial in.
Yeah.
Going back though, like, yeah, just whenever they mention, like we talked about before, they mention the word cult or brainwashed, it's like, how close can you possibly get to the point while still missing it completely?
And it's like they're proud of it. It's like they're proud that other people think that. It makes them more special. And anything that makes them special, they're on board with.
Well, and also they've thought a lot about what's just on the other side, which is like, but they describe it as bad, but they're describing something that's not real at all. They've literally made up the scenario of like, oh, when people leave, they go off and do this, you know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And it's like, that's interesting. So you're thinking about what that set of steps might look like for you, you know?
Yeah.
His quote
But
was,
it's not
That's
real.
what they would do, apparently.
right. His quote was, how can we have fellowship? Is it because we've been brainwashed? I hope not.
Oh yeah, that's it.
And then you summed up that entire sermon with, well, that was fun. Everyone who leaves is kind of like Judas. Everyone who stays is just doing their little part and carrying their load, except the workers who are carrying more. Also, the stayers definitely are not brainwashed.
Yeah.
That was his sermon.
That
That's
was the summation of it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think that sums up our podcast today.
Well,
Oh my goodness, our chaos.
Well, I do have.
I know. This is gonna be fun to edit.
I do have one gem that I actually really liked.
Yeah, I want to hear
I appreciated it. I think this was Fred. Thank you,
I thought
Fred.
it was a brainwash.
You appreciate it.
No, that's a good one. No, I appreciated something Fred shared with us. He just said, "Be careful what you tried. You might like it." That's right.
Yeah.
You're correct about that. As a matter of fact, that's exactly
Fred,
right.
Fred, what are you trying? What did you try?
I know.
Nothing. He's afraid to like it.
We know some things Fred has tried.
Yeah, we do know some things Fred has tried.
Yerba mate is what he's tried. That's I
Camel
don't know.
cigarettes.
I just remember him like having his little yerba mate cup with the little like metal straw.
Well, he got the other people into.
Yeah, he got my brother into yerba mate.
It's actually yerba mate.
Right, it's like some Argentinian tea.
It's a bog in a cup.
Well, now I'm afraid to try it. I might like it.